Hi, welcome to African Photography. My name is Douglas Musunga, the son of Musunga, the grandson of Munyari. In the last video, I'd hinted slightly about a full-frame camera and what it is, a high-end camera versus telling your story. But someone really asked about what a full-frame camera is, so today I'm going to talk about that. What is a full-frame camera and how can it help you to be a better photographer? Now, the most important bit of any camera is the sensor that is inside that camera. Now, the sensor is basically the brain of the camera, and it's what is the cause for a higher price, a lower price, whatever camera that you're buying, whether it's entry level or super high end. The main component that's taking up the price is the sensor. And the quality of the sensor will also determine the quality of images that you can get out of your camera. But as I said earlier, it's much more important to begin shooting, to get out, whether you're shooting with a basic entry level camera. You need to get in, you need to start doing some work. So as you upgrade, you could step onto a camera with a bigger sensor, which we'll call a full frame sensor. And there's actually another bigger sensor, which is called actually medium format. But today we'll just talk about the full frame sensor versus a crop sensor. And do you need a full frame sensor to be able to do good photography in Africa? Well, we'll get to that in a few. Now, a full frame sensor is based on 35mm film. That's where the whole concept comes from. 35mm film. The old cameras that which were using film, some of them were using what I call a 35mm film. Some were using smaller ones, and others were using the bigger medium format kind of film. But there are several kinds of sensor sizes. At times, you talk to a client and tell you, what are you doing that is special that I can't do with my phone? I have a very high-end phone and I can shoot good pictures. Truth of the matter is that your camera on the phone has got a very small, tiny sensor that they're trying to pack with so many pixels and cannot be able to achieve what a camera with a bigger sensor can. Even basic entry-level cameras, if you know what you're doing, you'll be able to get the very best out of them. Now, there are different sensor sizes. There is sensor sizes like the micro four thirds, which you have in some cameras, I think Sony's and a few other cameras. And then there is what we call the APS-C, and then there is the APS-H. So you'll find a lot of those in Nikon cameras and Canon cameras, some Pentax cameras. Then from that, we go on to the full frame camera, which is the full frame sensor. I'll keep interchanging the two words, camera and sensor. The full frame sensor is a 35mm that is much bigger than the other sizes, which we'll call the crop sizes. So the micro four thirds and APS-C, APS-H, all those are crop sensors. So we step up to the full frame sensor, the 35mm. Then when you go bigger, you get into what we call the medium format. We see a lot of medium format sensors on cameras like the Hasselblad, or you call it a Hasselblad, whatever you want to pronounce it as. So those ones have a much bigger sensor. Now, the advantage of having a bigger sensor in your camera or shooting with a full frame camera, it looks at light slightly different. You'll be able to get a better dynamic range. You'll get better performance in low light, and generally you're going to be able to get better pictures out of your camera. Now the question is, do I really need a full frame camera to be able to shoot pictures? Good pictures? No, not at all. For example, you see this picture. I shot this picture with a 12 megapixel camera, the Nikon D90. I shot it at a small waterfall up north in Uganda in a place called Maracha. And it was just about the composition of the lighting. This girl actually leaped up in the air. She jumped that high. She's a dancer. She's called Lilian Nalwega. No, Navada. Navada? Okay, yeah. She's an amazing dancer, and she jumped up in the air to be able for me to be able to get that kind of shot. But it was shot with a D90, which is a 12 megapixel camera with a crop sensor. And so I can compare it to other work that I've done with a full frame sensor, and some of it has not been very good. And I don't have a picture to show right now, but when you jump onto a full frame camera, if you know what you're doing, you're going to step up your whole ball game. It's a different thing. There are pictures that you can get out of a full frame camera are amazing if you know what you're doing. I repeat, if you know what you're doing. I don't believe in someone starting out to shoot on a very high-end camera. You know, you may have the money and the resources, you know, you rich man's cage, you wake up and you say, hey, I can own a 5D Mark II, Mark III, or Mark IV. I can own a Canon R. I can own, you know, a Nikon D810 or whatever it is. I can own that camera. I don't think it's a very good idea, because you may not appreciate what you get out of a full frame if you started out shooting on a full frame. So I think it's usually better for someone to start out on an entry-level camera, you know, basic camera with a, you know, crop sensor, lower megapixels. As you grow, you get to appreciate what you can get out of full frame, and you'll be able to use it very well. That's what I think about it. So I get back to the question: is it important? Is there a need for one to have a full frame camera in Africa today as a photographer? I would say absolutely no. You don't need to have a full frame camera. You don't need to have a full frame camera at all. However, when you get a full frame camera, if you shoot with a full frame camera, it will change your world. It's a very different ball game, and it's just different. It will take your photography onto a new level. If you know what you're doing, your photography will go from 0 to 100 when you're shooting with a full frame camera. But also that goes with the glass that you put upon it. It's very good for you to have very good lenses, and I'll talk about lenses in another video, but it's important for you to have good lenses. Somehow for Canon, the lenses that work on a crop sensor cannot work on a full frame camera. For Nikon you can go across, but for Canon it doesn't work that way. So good lenses will give you a better picture as compared to, you know, basic kit lenses. So do you need a full frame camera? No, you don't. Will it change your ball game? Yes, it will, 100%. So if you can upgrade to full frame camera, please do it. If you don't have the resources to get to a full frame camera, kick it with that simple camera that you've got. Go on telling the African stories. My name is Douglas, and you are watching Africa Photography. Please consider subscribing, and leave us some comments down here below. Leave us some comments there and share this with your friends and tell them about what we're talking about here. Let's keep this conversation going.